Hello, my name is Dulce Subia. I am in Chem 315, and today I'll be talking about how to purify a substance using distillation. The overview of the next couple of slides are the following. Number one is what is distillation. Number two is what you need in order to make a distillation happen. And the next one is the process of the distillation. And lastly, what to do after you obtained your purified substance. So, what is distillation? Distillation is a process that purifies a liquid substance. By using heat to vaporize the substance, you are able to use the lowest melting point for it to travel into the distilled flask, which should be the one that is initially empty. And on our right, we have a picture of what it should look like. The condenser with the hoses, your thermostat, which we'll talk about in the next slide. And here's what you need. You'll need a heating source. For example, a heating mantle, sandbags, or a flask with boiling water. It depends on the type of flask that you're using, which could help facilitate using a certain type of heating source. But the main goal is to make sure that you boil some of the substance inside the initial flask into vapor. And it's preferred for us to use in lab the round bottom flask just because it's easier when we use the roto wrap, which can be used to find crystals or induce the crystals as well. And eventually one will be filled with distilled substance, and at the end the initial one could be also filled with some substance or be completely almost evaporated. It's also important to have a thermometer to make sure the right temperature is reached for the substance to evaporate. For example, if there's a lower temperature but your substance is starting to evaporate, that could indicate that you have impurities already. So that's something that you could watch out for in case you're starting to doubt when it should start to induce a vapor. And of course, the condenser with hoses connected at the bottom, if holding it vertically, that should be where the water is coming in, and on the top it should be where the water is coming out. And this condenser helps to cool down the vapor, and over time it starts to get a little bit more colder, which you could see it as you're doing your distillation. And the process of distillation is your initial substance is placed onto a heating source, and then the liquid substance with the lower melting point will turn into vapor, so it will start to travel up the condenser. And then depending on how you place it, if you placed it vertically or horizontally, sometimes you could just do a vertical distillation, which is one flask, and that will just purify a substance. Or sometimes you could do a horizontal, which is two round bottom flasks, and in the end you might have two liquids in both. But the main point is that the vapor will travel through the condenser and it will reach the other end. The condenser should have the hoses attached as mentioned, which help with the input of water, which makes it possible for the vapor to cool down into liquid. And after distillation, like I mentioned before as well, some liquid should be in the distilled flask, which should be the initially empty one. The liquid should have a type of salt that can be induced to form crystals with another instrument that we used in the lab called the rotor wrap. The rotor wrap is filled with dry ice, and the round bottom flask starts to spin in a puddle of cold water. and that takes a couple of seconds or minutes. And then after we received it from our TA, there should be some crystals. If there is no crystals, you could always wait a couple of minutes or next lab, whatever is preferred. And based on those crystals, you can determine the purity of your substance by doing another type of various tests like melting points, boiling points, RA spectrums, and another type of infrared as well. Us in the lab, we didn't use any of those, but our TA always was nice enough to give those back to us. So this is the end of the presentation, and I hope you learned a little bit more about the process of distillation. Thank you.